"Can you give me a hug?" 4 words. That's all she said. 4 simple words from a complete stranger in a snow-covered café in Burlington, Vermont. She was broken, trembling, tears streaming down her pale face, and she was asking him, a widowed father she had never met, for the one thing money can't buy: human connection. But what Warren Hollins did next, what he almost didn't do, would set into motion a love story so unexpected, so raw, and beautifully painful that it would change 2 shattered lives forever. This is the story of a man who almost let the love of his life walk out the door, a woman who had nothing left to lose, and a 7-year-old girl who saw what the adults couldn't. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from. We love seeing how far our story travel. The snow fell silently over Burlington, Vermont on that cold Thursday evening in January 2020. Warren Hollins pushed through the door of the Birchwood Café, his 7-year-old daughter Nia clutching his gloved hand. The warmth inside hit them immediately, a welcome escape from the biting wind that had turned their cheeks pink and their breath into small white clouds. "Daddy, my fingers are frozen," Nia said, wiggling them dramatically. Warren smiled down at her. "Let's get you that hot cocoa I promised, okay?" They had just come from Green Valley Medical Center, where Warren's younger brother was recovering from back surgery. It had been a long, exhausting day. Warren had taken time off from his construction job, picked Nia up early from school, and spent hours trying to keep everyone's spirits high in that sterile hospital room. Now all he wanted was 15 minutes of peace before driving home. He ordered a black coffee for himself and a hot chocolate with extra marshmallows for Nia. They found a worn leather booth near the frosted window, and Nia immediately began drawing shapes in the condensation on the glass: a heart, a star, a lopsided snowman. Warren watched her with tired eyes. She looked so much like her mother. The same curious brown eyes, the same way she tilted her head when she was concentrating. Corinne. 5 years. 5 years since she had passed away from an illness that took her within weeks of diagnosis. 5 years of Warren raising Nia alone, learning how to braid hair from YouTube tutorials, attending parent-teacher conferences solo, and falling asleep in an empty bed. He had accepted that his love story was over. That chapter had closed, and he had made peace with it. Or so he thought. That's when he noticed her. A young woman sat alone at a table in the far corner of the cafe. She was staring at nothing, not at her phone, not at a book, not at the snow falling outside, just nothing. She had long auburn hair that fell in loose waves past her shoulders. Her skin was pale, almost ghostly, made even more so by the obvious distress written across her face. Her green eyes were rimmed with red, and dried tear tracks stained her cheeks. She wore a black dress and a thin cardigan. No coat, no scarf, no gloves. In the middle of a Vermont winter. Warren tried not to stare. It wasn't his business. Everyone had hard days. But something about her pulled at him. He recognized that look, the hollow, shell-shocked expression of someone whose entire world had just collapsed. He had worn that same look 5 years ago, standing in the hospital hallway after the doctors told him Corinne was gone. "Daddy, look, I drew you." Nia held up a napkin with a stick figure that had very long arms. Warren chuckled softly. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. I love it." But even as he praised his daughter's artwork, his gaze kept drifting back to the woman in the corner. 20 minutes passed. Warren finished his coffee. Nia scraped the last of the marshmallow foam from her mug. It was time to go home. He was reaching for their coats when he saw her stand up. The woman wiped her face with a crumpled napkin. She smoothed down her dress with trembling hands, and then she walked toward the exit. But she didn't leave. She stopped directly in front of his table. Warren looked up, startled. The woman's lips trembled. Fresh tears welled in her green eyes. She tried to speak, but no words came out. She tried again. I'm so sorry to bother you. I know this is completely inappropriate. I know you don't know me, but... She paused, swallowed hard, pressed her lips together as if trying to hold herself together. Can you give me a hug? Please? I really need someone to hold me right now. Warren froze. His mind flooded with 1,000 thoughts at once. Who is this woman? Why me? What will people think? What will Naya think? Is this some kind of setup? He sat there, paralyzed by indecision, his mouth slightly open but no words coming out. 1 second passed. 2 seconds. 3. The woman's expression changed. The fragile hope that had flickered in her eyes, that tiny, desperate ember, extinguished. In its place came something far worse. Shame, humiliation, heartbreak. She stepped back, shaking her head rapidly, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice cracking. That was so stupid of me. Please forgive me. Just forget I said anything. She turned and hurried toward the door. And in that moment, something inside Warren cracked open. He thought of all the nights after Corinne's death when he had lain awake staring at the ceiling, desperate for someone, anyone to tell him it was going to be okay. He thought of the loneliness that had wrapped around him like a second skin, the way grief made you feel invisible, like you were drowning while the rest of the world kept breathing. He thought of what Corinne would say if she were watching him right now. Don't let her walk away, Warren. You don't dare. Wait. The word left his mouth before he could stop it. Please, don't go. The woman stopped. Her hand hovered over the door handle, but she didn't turn around. Warren stood up slowly. He walked toward her, his footsteps heavy on the wooden floor. When he was just a few feet away, he spoke again, his voice softer this time. I'm sorry I didn't respond right away. You surprised me, that's all. But that doesn't mean I don't care. He paused. Whatever you're carrying tonight, you don't have to carry it alone. And then he opened his arms. The woman turned around. Her eyes were wide with disbelief, as if she couldn't quite believe what was happening. For a moment she just stood there, frozen. Then she stepped into his embrace, and she broke. Completely. Her entire body trembled as sobs tore through her. She buried her face against his shoulder and cried, not quietly, not politely, but with the raw, guttural sounds of someone who had been holding pain inside for too long. Warren held her steady. He didn't need to. Sometimes presence is more powerful than words could ever be. They stood like that for what felt like an eternity. The other customers in the café glanced over, curious, but no one interrupted. Even the barista behind the counter watched in silence. Finally, the woman pulled back. She wiped her eyes with shaking hands, mascara smudged across her cheeks. I can't believe I just did that. You must think I'm insane. I think you're human, and I think you're having the worst day of your life. A small, sad laugh escaped her lips. You have no idea. Naya had quietly walked over from the booth. She looked up at the little girl with wide, innocent eyes. Why are you so sad? She asked softly. The woman looked down at the little girl, and something in her expression shifted. A flicker of warmth, a crack in the armor. I lost someone very special to me, sweetheart. My mother. She passed away this morning. Warren's chest tightened. I'm so sorry. The woman nodded slowly, pressing her lips together to keep from crying again. She was all I had. She raised me my whole life. My father left when I was a baby. No siblings, no family. It was just us. And now... She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Warren understood. Her name was Audrey Kincaid. She was 29 years old, a librarian at the Burlington Public Library, the kind of person who remembered the names of every child who came to story hour and always had a book recommendation ready for anyone who asked. Her mother, June, had been diagnosed with a degenerative illness 3 years earlier. The doctors had given her 5 years, maybe 7 if she was lucky, but the illness had other plans. For 3 years, Audrey had been her mother's sole caregiver. She had moved back into her childhood home. She had cut her hours at the library. She had learned how to administer medications, how to prepare special meals, how to help her mother bathe when she could no longer do it herself. She had sacrificed everything: her social life, her savings, her dreams of traveling, of falling in love, of building a life of her own. And she had done it gladly, because June Kincaid was not just her mother. She was her best friend, her anchor, her entire world. That morning, Audrey had woken up early to check on her mother, the way she always did. But this time, June didn't wake up. She was still, peaceful, a soft smile on her lips, as if she had drifted off while dreaming of something beautiful. Gone. Audrey had called the hospice nurse. She had answered questions from the funeral home. She had signed paperwork. She had done everything she was supposed to do, moving through the motions like a ghost. And then she had walked out of the hospital into the falling snow with absolutely no idea where to go. She couldn't go home, not yet, not to that empty house full of her mother's things. So she had wandered, for hours, until her feet were numb and her thin cardigan was soaked through, until she found herself standing outside a small café called the Birchwood, drawn in by the warm light spilling through the frosted windows. She had ordered tea she didn't drink. She had sat in the corner and watched families come and go, fathers with their children, couples holding hands, friends laughing over coffee. And she had never felt more alone in her entire life. Then she saw him, Warren, sitting with his daughter, the way he looked at the little girl with such tenderness, the way he laughed at her drawings, the gentle patience in his voice. Something inside Audrey had shattered. She had stood up before she knew what she was doing. She had walked over to a complete stranger and asked for the one thing she desperately needed: a hug. And when he hesitated, when those few agonizing seconds stretched into eternity, she had felt her last thread of hope snap. But then he came after her. He held her. He didn't let her walk out into the cold, snowy night alone. I want you to pause and think about something. How many times have we been so wrapped up in our own hesitations, our own fears of what people might think, that we've missed the chance to be there for someone who needed us? Warren almost made that mistake. He almost let Audrey walk away. If you've ever been the person who needed a hug and didn't get one, or if you've ever been the person who should have given one but didn't, drop a comment below. Let me know your story. And if you're still watching, thank you for being here. This story is just getting started. Warren insisted on driving Audrey home that night. She protested weakly. "You don't have to do this. I've already imposed enough." But he wouldn't hear of it. There was no way he was letting her walk through the snow in that thin cardigan, her lips already turning blue from the cold. Her apartment was a modest one-bedroom on the second floor of an old brick building. Books everywhere, stacked on shelves, piled on the coffee table, arranged in neat rows along the windowsill. Photographs of her mother on almost every surface. June smiling on a beach, June holding a young Audrey at a birthday party, June in a hospital bed just weeks ago, her eyes tired but still full of love. Warren looked around the apartment, taking it all in. This was her entire world, and now she was expected to navigate it alone. Before he left, he grabbed a napkin from his pocket and scribbled down his phone number. "If you need anything," he said, pressing it into her hand, "anything at all, help with arrangements, someone to talk to, even just a distraction, please call me. I mean it." Audrey looked at the napkin, then up at him. Her green eyes, still red from crying, held a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she whispered. "You don't even know me." Warren was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that would stay with Audrey for the rest of her life. "Because 5 years ago, I lost my wife, and I remember what it felt like to have no one. I wouldn't wish that on anyone." He gave her one last gentle nod, took Nia's hand, and walked out into the snowy night. Audrey stood at the window and watched his car pull away. And for the first time since that morning, she felt something other than grief. She felt seen. 3 days later, Audrey called him. She hadn't planned to. She had stared at that napkin for hours, convincing herself it would be pathetic to actually use it. He was just being polite. He didn't really mean it. But then she had tried to call the funeral home to finalize arrangements, and her voice had cracked so badly that she couldn't get the words out. She had hung up the phone, sunk to the kitchen floor, and sobbed. And then she had dialed his number. Warren answered on the second ring. "I didn't know who else to call," Audrey admitted, her voice small. "I'm glad you called me," he said, and he meant it. Over the following weeks, Warren became Audrey's anchor. He accompanied her to the funeral home and helped her choose a casket her mother would have loved, simple, elegant, with carved flowers along the edges. He sat with her as she sorted through June's belongings, listening as she shared stories behind each photograph, each handwritten recipe card, each piece of costume jewelry. He brought Nia over on weekends. The little girl, with her innocent chatter and endless drawings, brought unexpected light into Audrey's darkest days. Nia would sit on Audrey's couch, coloring quietly, occasionally looking up to say things like, "Miss Audrey, you have really pretty hair," or "My daddy makes the best pancakes. You should come try them sometime." And slowly, so slowly, Audrey began to breathe again. Warren didn't mean to fall in love. It happened gradually, the way dawn creeps over the horizon, so subtle you don't notice it until suddenly the whole sky is filled with light. He found himself thinking about Audrey constantly, the way she laughed, really laughed for the first time 3 months after they met, when Nia accidentally knocked over a glass of orange juice and declared, "Daddy, the juice is escaping!" The way she listened when he talked, her green eyes focused and present, as if every word he said mattered. The way she had started reading to Nia at bedtime during their weekend visits, doing all the character voices, making the little girl giggle until her stomach hurt. The way she looked at him sometimes, when she thought he wasn't paying attention, with something soft and wondering in her expression. Warren hadn't allowed himself to feel this way since Corinne. He had convinced himself that part of his heart had died with her, buried in that cemetery on the hill. But Audrey was proving him wrong, and it terrified him. 7 months after that snowy evening in the Birchwood Café, Warren and Audrey sat on the front porch of his small house in the suburbs. The summer sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Fireflies had begun to emerge, blinking like tiny stars among the grass. Nia was in the yard, chasing them with a mason jar, her laughter floating through the warm evening air. Audrey watched her with a soft smile. Then she turned to Warren. "Can I tell you something?" "Anything." She took a deep breath. "That night in the cafe, when I asked you for a hug and you didn't respond right away, I thought I had humiliated myself beyond repair. I thought you were going to call security, or laugh, or just look at me like I was some pathetic, broken thing." Warren's jaw tightened. He remembered that moment, the hesitation, the fear, the almost fatal pause. "But then you came after me," Audrey continued, her voice wavering. "You held me. You didn't let me disappear into the night alone. And I've been trying to figure out ever since why. Why would a stranger do that?" Warren was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached over and took her hand. "Can I tell you the truth?" Audrey nodded. "I almost didn't," Warren admitted. "I almost let you walk out that door. I was scared. I was overthinking. I was worried about what people would say, what Nia would think." He paused, his thumb tracing circles on her hand. "And that almost mistake haunts me, because if I had let you go, I would have missed out on the best thing that's happened to me in 5 years. Audrey's breath caught. What do you mean? Warren turned to him fully. The setting sun cast a golden glow across his features, and his eyes, those steady, kind eyes, held nothing but certainty. I mean you, Audrey. Knowing you, caring for you, falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, fragile and powerful. You walked into that café completely shattered, and somehow you helped put me back together. You showed me that my heart wasn't dead. It was just waiting for someone brave enough to ask a stranger for a hug. Tears spilled down Audrey's cheeks. You love me? I love you, Warren said, and I think I have for a long time. I was just too scared to admit it. Audrey leaned in and kissed him. It was soft, gentle, the kind of kiss that holds 1,000 unspoken promises. When they pulled apart, Nia was standing at the bottom of the porch steps, her mason jar full of fireflies. "Does this mean Miss Audrey is going to be my new mommy?" she asked, her eyes wide with hope. Warren looked at Audrey. Audrey looked at Warren, and they both laughed, the kind of laughter that comes from pure, unexpected joy. If this story has touched your heart, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Soul Tales if you want more stories like this one. Because I truly believe these stories have the power to change lives, to remind us that love can find us in the most unexpected places, that second chances exist, that sometimes all it takes is one moment of courage, one hug, to change everything. Warren and Audrey were married the following autumn. The ceremony was small, held at the Burlington Botanical Gardens, surrounded by close friends and the community that had embraced them. The leaves had turned golden and red, and the air carried that crisp, clean scent of a new beginning. Nia served as the flower girl. She walked down the aisle with the biggest smile anyone had ever seen, tossing petals with enthusiastic abandon, whispering loudly to guests, "That's my new mommy up there." When Warren saw Audrey walking toward him in a simple white dress, her auburn hair crowned with delicate wildflowers, he felt tears sting his eyes. He thought of Corinne. He knew she was watching, and he knew, somehow, in his heart, that she approved. Audrey's vows were simple but devastating. "Warren, you didn't just give me a hug that night. You gave me hope. You reminded me that I wasn't invisible, that my pain mattered, that I mattered." She paused, her voice breaking. "You taught me that grief doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something new." Today, they live in a warm, book-filled home on the outskirts of Burlington. Nia is 12 now, bright, curious, and fiercely protective of her little sister. Her little sister, named June, after Audrey's mother. On their living room mantelpiece sits a framed photograph of the Birchwood Café, taken on a snowy January evening, a reminder of where their story began. And next to it, in a small glass frame, is a napkin with a phone number written in faded ink. The napkin Audrey almost threw away. The napkin that changed everything. Some people spend their entire lives searching for love and never find it. Others discover it in the most unexpected moments, in a snow-covered café, in a tearful request, in the simple act of opening your arms to someone who needed to know they weren't alone. Thank you for watching this story until the very end. You have no idea how much that means to me. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Soul Tales. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story, and leave a comment below telling me what moment in this story touched you the most. Until next time, be kind, be brave, and never underestimate the power of a single hug.